Hello, I'm Lisa Sylvester. Today I'm going to discuss with you the state of the university, Old Dominion University, and discuss its financial position from the 2016 to 2017 school year and where our budget stands and any changes that have been made. For today's agenda, we're going to start with the basic financial state of the university, where we stand, our net gains, any net losses. We'll talk about our funding streams, so where are we getting our money. We'll talk about the debt allocations, so where do we have to spend our money. That's our resource allocations and any contingencies. We'll talk about budget strategies and potential financial dilemmas that we need to consider for the future. Here's a graphic, a chart from our net position of the beginning of 2017 in comparison to the net position of the beginning year of 2016. Any kind of increases or decreases that we've had from the beginning to the end of the year. So as you can see, in 2017, the net position in the beginning of the year was $343,099,000. Whereas the net position at the end of the 2017 school year is $393,596,000. So if we just look at that, we do have an increase, a net gain of 14.7% in the positive. Whereas if we look at the difference between 2016 and 2017, where our net position at the beginning of the year was $427,596,000, in comparison to the net position at the beginning of the 2017 year, which was $343,099,000. So there was a loss of $120,571,000 between those 2 years. So that's a consideration. We had a percentage change of negative 19.8%. So looking at these numbers, we have to realize that there is a budget plan that we have to consider, and we have to start making some plans for the future because our university will not be able to continue on at a decrease in the budget. So here are the funding streams that Old Dominion University has coming in, the money that we're able to use for our debt. So the majority of our money is coming from students, federal aid, state aid, other ancillary portions as far as grants or research, our foundation, money from other investments, customers who are paying customers of the university, auxiliaries, and then agencies. So we're going to discuss those in a little bit more detail with our next graphic. The funding streams coming into Old Dominion University include gifts, investments, and other non-operating budgets, other operating budgets, so what the university operates on and is able to bring in, federal, state, and non-governmental grants, state appropriations, proceeds from bond reimbursements, student tuition and fees, auxiliary enterprises, and federal student aid. So the total operating revenues actually grew by $16 million, or 6.2%, and it's primarily comprised of student tuition and fees and auxiliary enterprise revenue. The student tuition and fees increased by $3.6 million, or 2.6%, and the auxiliary enterprise revenue actually increased by $12 million, or 11.4%, from the prior fiscal year. The growth in tuition and fee revenue was actually due to the rise in both in-state and out-of-state tuition rates, and the auxiliary revenue increase was due to an increase in fees and the renegotiation of contracts. In addition, Old Dominion University also received increased funding from federal, state, and local grants. And then non-operating revenue actually also increased by $8.5 million, or 4.9%, as a result of increases in state appropriations and Pell Grant revenue. Finally, other revenues increased by $11.4 million, or 48.8%, and this is as a result of reimbursements from the 21st Century Bond Program. There are 8 main resource allocations that ODU has as expenses going out of the university. They fall under the student, debt services, faculty, services for the school, staff, rents on the building and land, supplies, and equipment. Out of these 8, some are even broken down into further subsidiary areas or subsections within those sections for that allocation budget, and we'll discuss those with our next slide. From the original 8 resource allocation areas, we can break them up into further into 12 main resource allocation areas with the percentages for the budget in which we have to account for. So they come in with other non-operating expenses, research expenses, student services, depreciation, interest on capital asset debt, public services, institutional support, student aid, instruction, academic support, operation and maintenance, and then auxiliary enterprises. So the operating expenses did increase by $23 million from the past budget year, or 5.6%, primarily due to salary increases along with promotions for retention efforts in order to retain well-qualified faculty. There were new faculty positions created to support critical and high-demand academic programs, mostly related with the STEM career fields, and to continue to improve student-faculty ratios. So we want to decrease the student-to-faculty ratio. We want to have less students in the classes so that the faculty have more face time with those students. Additionally, we have increased expenses. They were also incurred in support of research initiatives. And there were mandatory cost increases related to healthcare costs and retirement contributions. In addition, there were also increases to support of contractual obligations, leases, and the operation and maintenance of new facilities. So with these areas, this is the biggest reason why our budget from last fiscal year to this fiscal year was in a decline, or why we came out in a net negative. And we're going to talk about how we can account for those in the future so that our budget is in a net positive from the next fiscal year. Now we're going to talk about the contingency budgeting. So some of the contingencies in the budget that were not discussed, or what areas that we have to consider, are the fact that we need to subsidize departmental budgets mainly through fundraising. So within those departments, they are able to fundraise on their own or write grants for their own in order to make up a portion of their allocated budget for each year. Grant stipulations, so when we do get grants, how are we allowed to spend that money? Is it able to go into a specific area, or is it mandated that we have to spend so much of that grant on research or on student activities? And then additionally, any kind of litigation. We don't have litigation in the budget for if we have legal fees regarding any circumstances around the school. I will say that the university does continue to maintain and upgrade current structures. So as well as adding new facilities, we're also increasing the investment in the development and the renewal of capital assets. So this is a contingency that brought our budget into the negative from last year, but we expect to bring it into the positive overall. So overall, the funds invested in the capital assets do reflect the ongoing campus construction, and the capital assets for this last fiscal year include an increase of $6 million in buildings, as well as $6 million in equipment. So this is going to come out as a net gain for the next fiscal year. Some budget strategies that we should consider as our budget moves forward throughout the year and throughout the next several years are that we do need to maintain and continue subsidizing departmental budgets through their own fundraising. So Old Dominion University ranks in the top 3 for STEM universities in the state of Virginia, and with that we do receive a lot of grant and a lot of funds for our STEM departments, and we need to consider subsidizing the allocated departmental fund with the grant funds that those professors are writing for. Additionally, subsidizing departmental budgets through yearly grant proposals. Again, that kind of plays in with the departmental fundraising, is taking a look and considering all of the funds that the professors are bringing in on their own and restructuring the budget that those departments will receive. And then finally, considering, or another, not really finally, but considering also restructuring the retirement plans offered and having set plans. So looking at the retirement plans that our current professors have, but then consider offering different benefits for future professors. Some areas to consider for potential financial dilemmas would include the decrease in federal funds or the decrease in state appropriations. So this is a natural trend. As more and more of society do not want increased taxes, but they still want widened access for higher education. So we are tasked with the great responsibility of providing this widened access and great education to more students, but we have less money per student to do that. Another area we need to consider is the dependence on market funds. The market fund availability that we have from year to year is drastically dependent on how well the societal market does. So if we're in regression, then we're not going to get as much funds from that market fund. In fact, we'll lose money. And so there are webs and ties that go with how much funding we can get from that, and then learning what those are and understanding how to better invest the money so that we do get a maximized profit margin. Additionally, the consideration of student persistence. We want to ensure that when students do start college, that they finish. There's a lot of money that goes into the recruiting of students, and we lose a lot of money if they do not continue in with their education or if they transfer to a different school.